The Costa Brava, Catalonia's famously wild coast, is tucked along the northeastern edge of Spain, where the Pyrenees Mountains taper down into the Mediterranean. It's popular but not overrun, scenic but still approachable. If you know where to look, Costa Brava rewards travellers with some of the most satisfying days you can spend on the Iberian Peninsula. This 200-kilometre stretch of Catalonia's Mediterranean coast, spilling from Blanes near Barcelona up to the French border, is a mix of too many things. Blue water, brutal cliffs, fishermen, retired Brits, Salvador Dali, neon hotel signs, 11th century villages, and traffic. So much traffic in July. It's messy. But you don't come here to chill anyway. You come here to have fun. Politically, you're in Catalonia, a place with its own language, culture, and a healthy skepticism toward Madrid. Most signs are in Catalan first. Learn to say bon dia and merci, and you'll be fine. Tourism-wise, it's one of Spain's earliest modern tourist zones. First hotels popped up in the 1950s during the Franco era and government-engineered beach vacations. Since then, it's been trying to balance mass tourism with natural beauty, with mixed results. You should fly into Girona if you can. Small airport, low stress, mostly Ryanair flights. Otherwise, land in Barcelona and drive north. Trains go to Girona and Figueres. From there, public transport exists, technically, but you'll want a car. The buses are infrequent, and hiking 5 kilometres in flip-flops because the beach looked close on Google Maps is how vacations die. Some cities wear their history lightly. Girona is not one of them. This Catalan city, just 100 kilometres northeast of Barcelona and a short drive from the Mediterranean coast, wears its past like armour. You feel it the moment your feet hit the cobblestones. It's in the tilt of every stone staircase, the weathered face of every wall, the shadows cast by bridges over the Oña River. Girona just makes you walk it, and the more you walk, the more you realise this isn't just a beautiful European city. It's one of the most compelling urban experiences in Europe. Girona sits not far from the French border, between the Pyrenees and the sea. It's the inland sister to the Costa Brava. This geography gave Girona strategic and symbolic weight. It was a crossroads of civilizations, and it was a fortress city for much of its life, besieged more than 25 times, including by Napoleon. That tension, the need to protect what's inside, still defines Girona. It feels inward and coiled, not unfriendly, just self-contained, as though the city is only willing to reveal itself if you walk slow and pay attention. The most remarkable thing you can do in Girona is walk the Passeig de la Muralla, the old city wall. Parts of it date back to Roman times. It arcs around the eastern side of the city, like a stone spine. The views make you stop mid-step. The red roofs below, the bell towers of the cathedral, the green hills beyond. This is not just scenery, it's context. From here you understand Girona's geography and its defensive mindset. You see how compact the old city is, how layered the streets are, how easily a quiet corner turns into a centuries-old square. The streets of the old town are narrow and crooked, designed to confuse both invaders and modern tourists. At the top of the hill stands the Girona Cathedral, with its unmatched single nave, the widest Gothic nave in the world. The climb is brutal in the sun, but the view from the top steps is worth it. All of old Girona stretched out in tiles and trees. Most postcard images of Girona feature the Oña River, lined with painted facades in hues of ochre, salmon and mustard. Several bridges cross it, but the Eiffel Bridge, built by Gustave Eiffel's firm before he built his tower, is the most elegant. Girona gained new fame in recent years as a major filming location for Game of Thrones. Fans walk the steps of the cathedral looking for dragons, and yet the city feels untouched by the hype. It absorbed Hollywood like it absorbed Napoleon, quietly, then returned to being itself. Located just an hour north of Barcelona by train, Blanes is often called the gateway to the Costa Brava. Technically, it's the southernmost town on this Mediterranean stretch, but symbolically, it's where the script flips, from soft Catalan suburbs and organised sands to wilder cliffs, smaller coves, and a coastline with sharper edges. If the Costa Brava is a journey, Blanes is where it starts, or where it leaves you behind. From here, you can rent a car or catch buses north into the deeper Costa Brava. In the 17th and 18th centuries, Blanes thrived on shipbuilding and fishing, but in the late 1800s, a combo of freak storms and economic collapse wrecked the port and ruined its fishing industry. Today, Blanes has a population of 38,000 residents. It's a working town with a beach problem, which is to say, it didn't grow up to be a tourist resort. It just happened to be near the sea. Walk inland and you'll find concrete apartment blocks, local hardware stores, and plazas full of Catalan kids kicking footballs around after school. Down by the seafront, the energy changes. The daily fish auction at the harbour still runs. Old men still play cards outside cafes. Nobody's performing. This is just life here. The beach itself, Playa de Blanes, is wide, golden and urban, just great for families. But if you walk north, past the harbour, the terrain starts to change. Rocks appear, pines bend, and the Costa Brava begins. The water here is clean, blue-green and swimmable well into October. In summer, the sea stays warm late into the night. You can swim under the stars. Blanes also has a secret, and it's up the hill. The Marimurtra Botanical Garden, perched high above the northern cliffs, is one of the most quietly stunning places on the Mediterranean. Founded in the early 20th century by a German biologist, the garden holds over 4,000 plant species from 5 continents. But the real payoff is the setting. Terraces with brutal sea views, cypress-lined paths, and a little classical pavilion called the Temple de Linné, looking out over nothing but blue. Lloret de Mar is one of the biggest, busiest and most polarising towns on the Costa Brava. It's a place where tour buses line up outside giant hotels and nightclubs advertise drink deals in 6 languages. If that's what you came for, it delivers. If not, you should probably keep driving. This is mass tourism Spain, sun, sand, concrete and non-stop promotion, but under the surface there's more structure than it gets credit for. Lloret is located about 75 kilometres north of Barcelona, or just over an hour by car or bus. It was once a fishing village, then it turned into a beach resort in the 1950s, and it never looked back. Today it has over 35,000 residents. It's built to handle tourism. Hotels, clubs, restaurants, supermarkets and parking towers are stacked across town. The reason people come here is simple. It's cheap, hot and easy to reach. Charter flights land in Girona and tour buses run daily. Young travellers and families from Europe come for short beach holidays that don't require cultural interpretation. It's package tourism and it's efficient. The layout is made for flow. Long streets packed with restaurants, bars and discount stores. The beachfront, Playa de Lloret, is wide and fully developed. The sand is coarse but clean and the water is excellent. The coast is still natural where it hasn't been built over. You can swim, snorkel, paddleboard, rent boats or walk north to Cala Boadella or Fennels, which are smaller, more protected coves. These spots are the exception. They feel quieter, especially in the morning. Walk a few blocks inland and the town spreads fast. You have the hotels, fast food, clubs and beach gear stands. Some of it's ugly, some of it's just busy. You'll find traffic, crowds and zero silence, especially between June and September. Say what you want, but Lloret can handle crowds. Public transport, beach access, hotel turnover, waste collection, all of it runs at scale. Especially in July and August, the town gets overwhelmed by bachelor parties, loud groups and drunk tourism. There's little enforcement. Public drinking is common and fights happen. Most of it's minor, but it's there. The cultural value is thin. There's a modernist chapel and a few nice walking trails. But if you're coming for Catalan culture, Lloret doesn't specialise in it. Tossa de Mar is one of the few towns on the Costa Brava that hasn't collapsed under the weight of its own popularity. It sits between the cliffs of the southern Costa Brava, about 90 minutes north of Barcelona by car, just below the wilder, less developed stretches of the coast. Buses run from Barcelona and Girona daily. It's a small town, about 5,500 people live here full-time, but in summer it fills up fast, with families from Barcelona, older French couples, Germans and British. The layout is simple, the beach is wide and central. One side of town is a clean grid of low-rise buildings, restaurants, hotels and rental flats. The other side is the old town, Vila Vella, walled and quiet, perched on a hill over the sea. The walls were built in the 12th century. They were restored but not reimagined. You can walk them in 15 to 20 minutes, with views out over the Mediterranean and down to the main beach. Inside the walls, there's a small network of houses, a few restaurants and a chapel. Down the hill, the town runs on beach rhythm. Mornings are quiet. By 10 o'clock, the sunbeds start filling up. By noon, the beach is full. In summer, it's hot, loud, and sometimes chaotic. But the water is clear, the infrastructure works, and you can still find shade if you know where to look. The smaller beach, Playa des Codelars, sits just behind the old town. It's smaller, tighter and rockier with better water and less noise. One of the best things about Tossa is that you can walk out of town and be in nature in 10 minutes. The Camí de Ronda, the old coastal trail, starts right at the edge. Head north and you'll find coves like Calabona, Cala Giverola and a handful of others tucked into pine-covered cliffs. Some you can drive to, others you hike to. If you go early, they're almost empty. There's no nightlife worth talking about. Maybe a few bars and some live music. Tossa's not built for partying. People come here to swim, walk, eat, sleep and repeat. That's it. There's a lot of talk about authentic fishing villages in Spain. Most of them aren't anymore. Calella de Palafrugell is one of the rare few that still is, because it never sold itself out. This is a small, low-key coastal village on the central Costa Brava, just off the edge of the mass tourism map. It has whitewashed houses, fishing boats pulled onto sand, quiet coves, and a rhythm that never quite shifted into high gear. It gets visitors, it gets busy in summer, but it never became a resort, and that makes all the difference. The name appears in records from the 17th century, but its layout and culture reflect the 19th and early 20th centuries, when it was a base for small-scale fishing and coral harvesting. The curved arches you see along the beach were built to store boats and gear. Some still are. Tourism arrived in the 1950s, but no high-rise hotels were allowed. That decision is why the town still looks and feels like it does. Development happened inland, in Palafrugell and beyond. Calella stayed small, even as its popularity grew. It is one of 3 beach villages that belong to the inland town of Palafrugell, alongside Llafranc and Tamariu. You can drive here in about 1 hour 45 minutes from Barcelona or 45 minutes from Girona. It's not isolated or remote, but it feels separate from the noise. The village is built into a rocky, curved coastline where headlands drop into coves and pine trees lean over the cliffs. The landscape forces the town to stay low and narrow. There's no through traffic. The roads end here. That keeps it quiet. There are a few bars, but no scene. Calella shuts down early. The shoreline here is fractured. It's a series of small beaches and inlets, not one big bay. That keeps things visually interesting and naturally divided. The sand is coarse and golden. The water is cold, clean and transparent. You can walk the entire waterfront in under 30 minutes, following stone paths and narrow steps that hug the coast. Pals is a medieval hill town in Baix Empordà, a rural region just inland from the Costa Brava. It's not big, it's not dramatic, but it's one of the best preserved towns of its kind in Spain. You can walk through it in less than an hour, but the quality of what's there, the layout, the materials, the restraint, makes it worth a closer look. It sits on a low rise above flat farmland. From the town walls you can see the sea to the east and the Pyrenees to the north. The landscape around it is open. Rice paddies, vineyards, pine groves and scattered stone farmhouses. There are no modern buildings in the old centre. What was medieval is still medieval. The town sits about 90 metres above sea level on a hill called Pud Aspre, which lifts it above the flat fields of the Empordanet. What used to be marshland is now mostly used for growing rice and grains. To the east, 6 kilometres away, is Playa de Pals, a long stretch of coastline backed by dunes and pine forest. That beach is part of Pals, but feels completely separate. The old town itself is inland, and it has no sea view, just rolling plains and distant mountain ridges. By the 15th century, Pals was a functioning town with walls, a castle, a town square, and market rights. Like many Catalan villages, it suffered in the later medieval period. Wars, plagues, and gradual economic decline hit hard. The castle was partially destroyed in the 15th century and never fully rebuilt. The old centre of Pals is small, maybe 6 or 7 streets in total, laid out in a rough oval around a central hilltop. It's built almost entirely in sandstone, pale and rough, much of it dating from the 11th to 15th centuries. The streets are cobbled, uneven, narrow, arches connect buildings. There are no cars allowed inside the core. The town was built to be walked slowly. It doesn't have many sights, and that's not a problem. What matters is the town itself, the slope of the streets and the texture of the walls. There's a moment, about 10 minutes before you reach Begur, when the road starts to climb. The coast drops away behind you, the pine trees thicken, the air sharpens. Then, just as the hill crests, the town appears. There are stone houses, terracotta roofs, an old castle ruin on the ridge, and, off in the distance, a jagged coastline that doesn't seem to know how to be gentle. This is Begur, not a beach resort, not a party town, and definitely not a secret. It knows exactly what it offers: history, coastline, food, and calm, all in one place. Small enough to walk across in 15 minutes, rich enough to stay for a week. Begur has roots, real ones. Long before it drew summer homes and weekenders from Barcelona, it was a defensive town set on a hill to watch the sea and warn of pirates. The castle ruins at the top still look out over everything: the Medes Islands offshore, the Pyrenees to the north, and a coastline carved into fingers of rock and forest. Begur itself is small, maybe 4,000 year-round residents. The streets are narrow, built for walking, and most of them curve. There's no grid and no obvious centre. There's also a weekly market and a few local festivals. In the 19th century, returning Catalans from Cuba, Indianos as they were called, built stately mansions around town, bringing back money, palm trees and Caribbean influence. You can still see them today, mostly along Carrer Bonaventura Carreras, their balconies wide and their facades faded but proud. This gives Begur a strange dual identity, deeply Catalan but with outward-looking DNA. The coastline below is some of the best on the Costa Brava. No flat promenades, just coves, each with its own shape. From Barcelona, Begur is about 1 hour 45 minutes by car. Public transport exists but isn't easy. Bus to Palafrugell, then a local connection. Parking's tight in summer. Many coves are only reachable on foot or by hotel shuttle. Besalu is one of the most complete medieval towns in Catalonia. No facades, no reconstruction. The layout, the stone, the bridge, it's all still here, and it hasn't been repackaged for tourists. It's the real thing. Located about 30 kilometres from Girona, Besalu sits between two rivers and holds a strategic position that once made it a regional capital. Today, it's a small, manageable town with real historical substance and just enough tourism to stay active without being overwhelmed. The town's stone bridge is the entrance and the symbol, a 12th century Romanesque structure with 7 arches and a defensive tower in the middle. It leads directly into the historic centre. There are no cars, no gates, and no ticket booths. You just walk in like people have for almost 1,000 years. Once you're inside, the layout is tight. Narrow streets, arcaded squares, houses pressed together with minimal decoration. Most of what you see was built between the 11th and 14th centuries, and most of it is still used. At its peak, Besalu was the capital of a small county. It had a castle, a monastery, and regional influence. Those pieces are still visible. The monastery of Sant Pere, originally founded in 977, anchors the town centre with its clean Romanesque lines and sparse interior. The Plaza Major is built low and close, with uneven stone arches and a few outdoor cafes where locals drink coffee, and the daily pace doesn't move much faster than it did in 1350. Today, Besalu has around 2,500 residents. It gets visitors, especially in the summer and on weekends, but the crowds are manageable. Most are Spanish or Catalan, some French. English is spoken, but not assumed. There are restaurants that serve what they should, local Catalan dishes like grilled meat and mushroom rice. You can walk the entire town in an hour, walk down to the river, cross the bridge again at sunset when the stone goes gold and the shadows fall long and clear. Cadaques isn't a place you pull off the highway for. There's no train station, no airport, no convenient stopover. You get here by winding through the hills of Catalonia, switchback after switchback, past olive groves and dry cliffs, until suddenly the road drops. And there it is, a tight cluster of white buildings around a slate-coloured bay. Cadaques sits on the Cap de Creus Peninsula, the easternmost point of mainland Spain. The coast here is jagged and wild, shaped by wind and sea, with rocky inlets and cliffs that plunge into deep water. There are no wide beaches. Instead, there are cales, small, intimate coves reached by foot or boat, each one unique, each one quiet. The heart of Cadaques is its old town, a tight maze of stone lanes, bougainvillea-covered balconies, and white facades that seem to glow at dusk. There are no clubs and no advertising. The streets are rough cobblestone, irregular and ancient. You have to walk carefully, and in the centre of it all is the Santa Maria Church, built in the 16th century and still standing guard, with its massive Baroque altarpiece and modest white bell tower. The port is filled not with yachts, but with fishing boats, many of them still used. There are small restaurants serving grilled sardines, black rice and calamari. You can sit for hours without being rushed. To talk about Cadaques without mentioning Salvador Dali is impossible. He spent much of his life just around the corner in Portlichat, a tiny harbour whose jumble of fishermen's houses he turned into a surrealist home and studio. It's still there. You can visit it by appointment only and see his easel still positioned in front of the sea, ready for the next hallucination to arrive. Dali called the coastline around Cadaques geological delirium. He believed it distorted time, twisted space, and gave shape to dreams. When you stand on the rocky promontories of Cap de Creus, with wind howling and salt in your throat, you begin to understand what he meant. Go far enough, and the land starts to break. That's what happens at Cap de Creus, the easternmost point of the Iberian Peninsula, where the Pyrenees fall into the sea and Spain seems to hesitate before it ends. It's a place that doesn't feel finished. The earth here's cracked and folded, wind scoured, bleached and bent by time, water gnaws at the cliffs, light cuts through the air like a knife. Geologists come to Cap de Creus for the same reason artists and wanderers do. It doesn't look like anywhere else. The rocks here are warped, twisted into impossible shapes. It's a collision zone. Tectonic plates, volcanic remnants, ancient seabeds, all mashed together by time and pressure. The stone looks melted. When Dali called it a geological delirium, he was right. The cliffs seem to lean. The ground doesn't lie flat. The coast is all inlets, cracks and jagged ridgelines. Water pushes in, but never fully claims the land. Kayakers and small boats explore the hidden coves of Cap de Creus, many unreachable by foot. The water here is cold, clean, and almost painfully blue. At the tip of the cape is Phare de Cap de Creus, a functioning lighthouse and the end of the road. You can park here, get a drink at the tiny seasonal cafe, and stare out toward the open Mediterranean. You can hike from Cadaques to the lighthouse along marked trails, about 8 to 10 kilometers, depending on the route. The trails are exposed, no shade, little cover, lots of wind. Along the way, you pass coves and viewpoints that seem unplanned. Cala Bona, Cala Portoló, Cala Galadera, each a different take on the same primal palette. The monastery of Sant Pere de Rhodes stands alone, halfway up a windswept mountain on the northeastern edge of Catalonia. It looks like a fortress, and in some ways it was. It's one of the most important and best located Romanesque buildings in the region. Someone put something monumental up here, far from everything, and expected it to last. It did. It's set on the southern slope of the Serra de Rhodes, a coastal mountain range that drops sharply into the Mediterranean. The road up is narrow, winding, and steep. By the time you reach the monastery, you're nearly 500 meters above sea level. The parking lot is just below the site. From there, it's a short walk uphill to the entrance. If you come early or late in the day, it'll be quiet. Sant Pere de Rhodes is a Benedictine monastery, first documented in the 9th century, though some parts of the complex may be older. It grew in the 10th and 11th centuries into a major religious, cultural and political centre in medieval Catalonia. At its peak, the monastery was wealthy and powerful. It had land, influence, and connections to both local counts and the wider Christian world. Pilgrims came from across Europe, often on their way to Santiago de Compostela. Sant Pere de Rhodes offered them both a holy relic, supposedly the remains of St. Peter, and a serious architectural experience. The monastery was abandoned in the 18th century, pillaged and stripped in the 19th, and slowly restored through the 20th. What you see today is part original, part reconstructed. Have you ever been to the Costa Brava? Share your experiences in the comments. If you loved this video, hit the like button and subscribe to World Travel Guide.